So you want to be a digital nomad? Well, your timing couldn't be any more perfect. My name is Andrew, and welcome to Digital Nomad Journey, where we support digital nomads and remote workers seeking the laptop lifestyle and being location independent. Welcome. Today I did an interview with a total pro. Not only is she a digital nomad herself with years of experience, but she is a career coach as well. We had a wonderful chat. She's building an amazing community on Facebook. You're going to want to see the entire interview. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more interviews like this. Check it out.
Right on, Benedict. Thank you so much for joining us today. Benedict has experience in the luxury hospitality industry and marketing, holds an MBA and a master's in career consulting. As a certified professional coach by the International Coaching Federation, she provides a holistic approach to career transition and development. Known as Bene, the Nomad Coach, she has been traveling the world for the past 18 years and now lives between Canada and Europe. Benedict coaches clients over the phone, Zoom, and email across industries and continents to find the career they were meant for and ways to excel within. Benedict, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Nomad Journey.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
It's a true pleasure having you here. When you and I connected recently, and I realized that you were a digital nomad before it was cool. And so not only are you a digital nomad yourself, but in an indirect way, I suppose you oftentimes find yourself helping other people become nomads as well, depending on what kind of career change they're going through. Is that fairly accurate, or how would you express that?
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a digital nomad. Like, I guess I'm truly and fully a digital nomad for the past 4 years. But it's true that I've been traveling for 18 years. I left France, where I'm originally from, when I was 18. And I lived in the UK, in Italy, in the Middle East, in the US, in Canada. So traveling definitely got into my DNA, and after a few years, I was in a completely different field before being a career coach, and it's very much when I've decided to look at my life from a different perspective that I've also decided to go full time as a digital nomad.
Something tells me you have an incredible story to share. So why don't you take us right back to the very beginning, 18 years ago? What sparked that interest to travel? And then perhaps you could also speak to more recently, as far as not 18 years ago, what got you into career coaching? If you could touch on those two aspects, I'd be interested to learn more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I have a very, very specific memory, a souvenir of the time I've decided to never live in France again. So I was 18. I was at that time working in the US in Philadelphia. And after a few months, I was like, this is amazing because it's so different, because it helps me to get to know myself better, because it was such an amazing experience, because the world is big, because everything is possible. So then I was like, why would I actually go back to France and live there when you have, so many opportunities in the world that can really create a very interesting life for yourself. So when I was 18, I said, I will never live in France. And I've never did again. And then coming back to your second question about my professional transition. So it's funny because it's related to a travel again. It was a few years ago now, and so before being a coach, I was in marketing and communication, working for luxury hotels, fascinating industry, but didn't find myself, in the role that I was actually holding when I was working there. And so I remember I actually traveled to India, and it was again so different, so different from what I knew, that it really opened my perspectives. And I think I was in a place where I was not very fulfilled anymore. I was not far from the burnout. Things were not great at work. There were a few things that were just not aligned with who I was, who I wanted to be. And I think I had a sense as well of not feeling useful. And I guess it was the time for me to really take the time to actually take a break, think about what I really wanted to do, and take some risks as well to change my life. I tend to take time to think about things, but then when I make a decision, it's, you know, I just take action right away on it. And so I actually came back from India. The day after, I was actually giving my resignation letter to my boss, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I needed a change. I just knew I wanted a different life. I knew I wanted to really blend my personal and professional life. I didn't want that distinction anymore. I wanted also to be able to better live my interpersonal qualities and use them, you know, in the best manner. And so I left. And I remember I traveled to the US and to Canada. I loved Canada. It really planted a seed in my mind, just left it there for a while. And then I just tried things. You know, I took like theater classes, violin classes. I volunteered in a dog shelter. I worked as a freelancer on different projects. I was just, you know, trying new things to discover myself. And I actually worked as well myself with a career advisor who really helped me as well to identify who I am, what I like, what I don't like, what's important to me, what my priorities are. And so it all started from there. Went back to school. At that time, I was living in Lebanon, so I had to leave everything behind me, my personal life, go back to my parents. So I had to live again with my parents, which was pretty challenging, but great support from them, definitely. And that's when my journey started. So I did a master degree, and from the beginning, I knew I didn't want to stay, in Europe. And I remember Canada was, you know, somewhere in my mind. So I started doing a lot of research, trying to find a place where actually I could be a better coach, a place that could really support me in making me progress and evolve in my new profession. And Canada came back because there are a lot of concepts and theories that actually come from Canada. And so that's why I decided to travel to Vancouver, where I have set up my business. And then once my business was properly set up, I realized, first of all, that I was never in Vancouver. I was paying, you know, a very high rent for maybe 6 months a year. And then I was like, why do I do that? You know, is there a different way, you know, I could look at my life? Is there a different way to shape it? And that's when I decided to sell all my furniture, my stuff, and I went full-time digital.
Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing the context there. I think it's an important story to share from everyone because everyone has their own path. Everyone carves out their own journey. And there are two things that you just shared with us that I'd love to highlight. One, and the more important factor, I think, is that nomads have an unfair advantage when it comes to incorporating your work-life balance, your work and personal balance. And you just touched on that you wanted to, you didn't want that division necessarily anymore. You wanted to find a way that you can incorporate and be your best self in both sides. That's how I understood you sharing that with us. And I really appreciate that because a lot of people really do have this two areas of their lives that they keep quite separate. And I think nomads, whether you're a digital nomad or a work at home professional or virtual freelancer, what have you, you have the opportunity to craft your work around your life instead of forcing to fit your life in wherever around your work. And I think with the advances in technology in recent years, more and more people are going to realize that very benefit. So that's the one thing that I appreciate you sharing. And then the other thing, I spent the bulk of my adult life in Vancouver. I'm coming to you from Scotland right now, but Vancouver is not an affordable city. It's just not. It's I found it very difficult to get ahead there. A lot of people do. And if you were never physically located there, I can only imagine how inconvenient it would have been to pay those living expenses, and you weren't even there to enjoy the beautiful city that it is. So yeah, you made a smart call there. But moving on, what would you share with the new nomad? Because there are a lot of people who are probably living with their parents right now. I mean, we laugh about it, but there's a lot of people that, decided to converge back home because of the lockdown, because of quarantine, because of the added risks and threats that we're all dealing with in such a weird way this in mid 2020. Here we are. So what would be one thing that you wish you knew before you started living this nomadic lifestyle? What's one thing that you wish someone had sat you down and said, hey, just make sure you have this sorted and taken care of? Because right now there's a lot of people forced into a remote lifestyle, and I'm curious what you would tell that person who is trying it out for the very first time.
Mm. Well, community is very important to me, and I think it's very core to digital nomadism. I think it's important to actually recreate your network of people who see things the same way you do. So, finding a way to just connect with other digital nomads, because all those people are also living their nomadism, on their own way, and they have full of stories, full of tips to share. So to me, it's very much to be connected to that community. It's super important, and it's very supportive, because sometimes, it's annoying when I have to explain, who I am, what I do, why I do it like that, because it's just so different from what we're used to or what people are used to. And sometimes, I just wish to say I'm a digital nomad and everybody understands what it is, or I live in a co-living and everybody understands what it is. But it's not the case yet, and someday it will happen. But so sometimes it can be a bit frustrating for me. I feel a bit lonely and not understood, because I'm not addressing myself to people who see things the same way that I do. So for me, one very core thing to any successes anyway is really to be surrounded by the right people, the people who have the same mindset, the same way of looking at life. That's super important. And I think that's just one step, because here you can really get inspired, you can look at things from a different perspective, you can be supported, and that's probably that will also allow you to actually take the first step to move towards that.
That's fantastic feedback. I resonate with that advice wholeheartedly. And because being a nomad is still a very new idea, it's becoming more and more popular. All the trends are showing, all the surveys that have been conducted are showing massive growth in this minimalist or remote lifestyle or nomadic lifestyle. And then COVID-19 actually gave it a boost. And I think it's only sensible and prudent to assume that this is not going to be the last massive crisis that we will survive. And I think nomads have a higher resiliency factor. So in finding your tribe, in finding those other like-minded people where you don't have to explain what a digital nomad is, I can relate to what you're saying there too, because I've certainly gotten those strange looks and people kind of turning their heads going, what is this? What are you? How do you live? It can be a little frustrating. So I can agree with you there. I'm curious, do you have and I like this question because it's not always something that we want to brag about, and we all learn from our mistakes, but what is one mistake that you wish you could have avoided and you'd like to share with other people when you first went remote?
The very first thing that comes to my mind is actually to go full into the digital nomadism life. Because when I started, I had my apartment in Vancouver, then I was traveling a bit, and then coming back to my apartment, then going to other countries, renting an Airbnb. And, it was an in-between thing. And I wish I would have probably just go straight to a co-living. I wish I would have really got rid of more stuff. I wish I would have, I think just diving into it is the best way to experience it. And also because I realize, you hold yourself to a lot of things that are actually not necessary or not useful to you, but for some reason you're still attached to the things. And more I get detached and more liberating it is, and more free I feel, and more fulfilled I feel. Do the full experience, don't yeah, just do the full experience.
I like that. I like that very much. I'm a big believer behind minimalism, but however, you don't have to. I suppose you don't have to be a minimalist to be a nomad, but it certainly helps. And it was a very freeing day for me when I sold my car and donated items and gave stuff away and put the bare essentials in a storage locker, and I just set off and haven't been back since. And there's something extremely freeing about that. And I think people who are drawn to the nomadic lifestyle, they value life experiences more than materialism. And it's okay if you value materialism, but it doesn't mean that you need to lug around a lot of stuff when just because somebody else has stuff. I think to a certain extent, it's keeping up with the Joneses and trying to make up appearances by collecting all these items that don't really bring you a lot of joy, but you're expected to get the house, you're expected to get the car, you're expected to get all these things because it's just what people do. Well, no, not necessarily. You can carve out your own path. So I appreciate you sharing that as well. Do you have a favorite tool or resource that makes this remote lifestyle possible or easier, more efficient for you?
Yeah, well, my online agenda, so I use Acuity scheduling. Because I have clients everywhere in the world, so we're all on different time zones, and so it would be just a nightmare for me if I were to handle all those appointments. I coach as an average 200 people a year, so that would be actually just a full-time job if I were just to manage my appointments. So my entire life is on it, and thanks God that does exist. Yeah.
I'll make sure to include all the links in the YouTube description below for any tools and resources and what have you that we discuss in this call to make it a little easier for the viewer. So you're a business coach and a career coach, sorry, and you no doubt seek out inspiration and knowledge and information from various sources. I would love to know if you have any favorite books or podcasts or YouTube channels or events that you've attended that you would recommend to other aspiring new digital nomads and remote workers?
I love people, so everything that I do is around with people. So I don't necessarily have a favorite podcast or channel besides yours, of course. But for me, it's just being inspired by others. When I really started my full-time digital nomad life, I actually traveled to Chiang Mai in Thailand, where the Nomad Summit is hosted every year. And it's like a huge conference over 3 days with events before and after, where you have actually a lot of people, all digital nomads coming from everywhere in the world. You have different speakers, sharing their path, sharing tools they use. You had partners, everything that, you just go there and you basically have a toolbox to become a digital nomad. So at that time I was already pretty much in place. So the content of the conference was not that interesting to me because I've already experienced it. But I think for a new digital nomad, it's super interesting. And the value again to me was the community. Typically, I didn't have to explain I was a digital nomad, and it was just about sharing tips and travels and just enjoying the experience, like you were saying earlier, of connecting with someone who's like-minded. And then what I do as well is whenever I arrive in a new place, in a new destination, that's the first thing that I do, networking. So I check all events in town, meetups, anything that is related to entrepreneurship, nomadism. I've created my own meetup in France. So when I go there, I actually organize those kind of events. And it's very informal, and it's very chill, and it's super nice. And again, because we all come with our own experiences, then it just makes our connection much richer.
And so following up on that, how have you adjusted because of COVID-19? Because now we're all forced in this virtual capacity, and I know social distancing is starting to return. A lot of these government regulations are starting to relax somewhat, although we're seeing some spikes in certain parts of the world as well. How have you adjusted your networking approach? Because as you alluded to a little bit earlier, being a nomad can be quite lonely at times. And that's not to say that you need to live the life of a hermit. You can certainly still network with people, but I'm curious how you've adjusted.
Yeah, well, purely business-wise, nothing has changed for me because, you know, I live in a co-living, so I'm surrounded by other digital nomads, other entrepreneurs. All my clients are online. I only work with them online. My setup is there. I actually got more work because I was invited to support, you know, the transition in certain companies. So from that aspect, it didn't really change. However, a friend of mine and I were actually working on building a co-living specialized in wellness. And so we started working on it in January, and then the COVID arrived, and they were like, shoot, we can't travel, we can't explore, you know, destinations, we can't do everything we wanted to do. So instead, what we have decided to do, because to us, the core again of a co-living is the community. And we want to build a beautiful place just to host wellness practitioners, entrepreneurs, nomads. And so that's super important to us. So we're like, how can we turn that into something else for now until, you know, things get better? And so we have actually decided to do Facebook live talks and create an online community on Facebook where we actually connect with wellness practitioners. And every week we have a live on Friday. We choose a topic which is always about self-awareness, around self-awareness, but there is a different topic every time. And we invite digital nomads, wellness practitioners, you know, having different professions, but sharing probably the same vision of life and discussing you know, a common topic. And it's super interesting to have all those people from around the world just to connect. And it's really interesting because it really created something, you know. It's just so easy because again we approach life from the same perspective. So that's what we're doing now, and then we'll see end of this year or next year if we can travel again and start exploring destinations. But the beautiful thing that actually COVID created is that we managed to create our community even before launching the co-living. The COVID would have not been there. Maybe we would have needed, you know, one more year before building that community. But no, we're actually building it right now.
Yeah, this is this is an exciting time to be alive. I think. I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed with all the negative news out there, but I consider myself naturally an optimistic person, and I certainly get that vibe from you as well. And there's a lot of experts out there, futurists. I've written about in my book in various places about Peter Diamandis. He's a very popular futurist and is predicting that in 4 years' time, the population that currently has access to the internet will double in 4 years, and approximately 8 billion people will be connected at gigabyte speed connections at near zero cost, thanks to people like Elon Musk working on the Starlink project and whatnot. And every square meter on the planet will have internet access. Now, I find that fascinating that during COVID-19, someone like yourself, you just shared with us, you got busier. You got busier because that is the trend. That is where we're moving. That is where we're going. So the question that I pose to people who are struggling right now because maybe they were laid off or furloughed, perhaps use this as an opportunity to realize that maybe the business you were working for or the industry you were working in, maybe it was already on its last legs. Maybe the value that the marketplace once dictated that it commanded is no longer there, or is slowly moving out. You know, when the automobile was first introduced, it was deemed unreliable compared to the trusted horse. But you don't see a lot of people riding horses anymore, right? So what I encourage people to do is to focus on the trend and where we're moving towards. Someone like yourself, you got very busy. This is clearly an indication that this is where we're going. And then the other aspect that you touched on that I really respect is, this is only my personal opinion, but I have noticed that there's an above average number of nomads who are interested in self-awareness, digital digital well-being, and just overall quality of life. And maybe it's just because of who I surround myself with, but I do find that there is a disproportionate large number of people who are concerned about wellness that have a deep interest and desire in the nomadic lifestyle. So thank you for creating that community. Again, I'll be including all the links in the description below. And so now I have to ask, at any point in your journey, did you ever come across pushback? Did anyone ever give you a hard time? And I have to ask you this because I know for myself, my mom wasn't very excited when I told her that I wanted to jet off around the world. Did you have anyone in your life that was giving you a little pushback, a little grief, a little trouble when you through at any stage over the last 18 years?
I think when I changed career, because before I decided to actually change career, I had a good job, good life, everything was fine. So I think people didn't really understand why suddenly I decided, to shake up everything and change everything and start from zero again. I'm very, very grateful and very privileged because my parents are of great support. I know they don't always understand my choices, but they are always around. So I guess it's the most important. But I had people, telling me, why are you doing this? I don't get it. It's risky. You're too old to do that. I mean, any good reason was a good reason to them. And I think it's just their own fears, that they actually project on you. And on the contrary, I had people, admiring the fact that I was doing this. Oh, it's amazing. You are taking control of your life. You are following your dreams. So I really had, both sides. And again, I think there are some people I, didn't connect with too much because it was not serving me at that time. And then once I was more established, once they saw that it was actually working well, then we were able to connect again. But I remember at the very beginning when I started my business, people were always asking me this question that I hated. I don't know why, but it was, so do you have clients? And it was really annoying because I was like, yeah, well, what do you think I do all day long? But I could see, they were scared for me. So it's very nice, but it's not necessarily helpful and supportive.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us because I think that's a common friction point for a lot of new nomads out there. And then as long as we're on the subject, I think you would have a very unique perspective being a career coach as far as where do you see the largest challenges and largest obstacles that people are coming across today, and what do they do to overcome in spite of those obstacles?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say fears in general. And we all have our own fears, our own limiting beliefs. But, when the fear is too strong, too present, then you freeze and you're not even able to take action or to move forward. And to me, being a digital nomad allows you to actually face your fears because you are alone in a new country, you don't know anyone, it can be very confronting, but it's such a learning curve, that it's just so much value. And fears, well, how do you overcome that? I think it comes back again to self-awareness, understanding who you are, what's important to you, why you are going there, why you want to become a digital nomad or not. And again, it's not for everyone. But I think it's a lot of introspective work. It's a lot of, taking a step back and reflecting on what you do and doing that on a regular basis, and really being conscious about yourself. To me, that's the only way you can actually face your fears and accept them as well, because they are here for a reason and they're part of you, and it's okay. But again, sometimes they're not serving you, and you need to do something about it.
One of my favorite lines is, anything you've ever wanted is just on the other side of fear. It's something that I'm reminded of often because you don't really spent a lot of time in your life maybe booking one-way flights when we were able to travel, one-way flights, but it's something that a nomad does quite commonly. And there is a sense of fear that you do have to overcome when you're going through that process for the very first time. So if this is your first time watching Digital Nomad Journey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I've been a nomad for a couple years, and I am committed and obsessed with bringing you the very best content that I can come across. That includes speakers like Bénédicte, who's clearly got the experience and the knowledge to share to improve your chances of success and becoming a digital nomad. And so to move forward, I was hoping if you're willing to share, if you have perhaps, speaking about fear a second ago, if you perhaps have a low point in your journey, in your path that you really struggle to overcome. Because I know a lot of people are going through a rough time right now. A lot of people feel like they're painted into a corner. They're frustrated. They're annoyed. They hate the fact that this stupid virus came along, or that there are riots going on down the street. There's all kinds of exterior forces that have real impact on our lives. And sometimes it's really hard to look towards in yourself and find that confidence to keep moving forward, to know that you will overcome this. So do you have a low point in your journey that you'd be willing to share with us?
My struggle is, and has been for a very long time, but unfortunately is still around. It's self-care, and digital nomadism doesn't help because, well, there are two things. I'm an entrepreneur, so obviously I need to run my business. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, energy, investment of myself. I support people from an emotional perspective as well, so it can be pretty draining sometimes. And then I'm a nomad, so your body also needs to adjust to new environment, new people, new weather, new water, new food. And so when you do that, on a regular basis, it can really get onto your body, your emotions, your state of mind. And also, because I work with people all around the world, I also need to be, careful with the different time zones. When I was in Thailand, for example, it was tough because I was having my first coaching at 4 or 5 a.m. And then, most of my day was free. So I was working until noon on admin stuff and so on. And then I was taking my whole afternoon to take care of myself and to enjoy as well of, being in Thailand. And then from 8 to 11 p.m., I was coaching clients again. So when you do that every day, it's fine because you have a break in your day, but still, it can get you on your energy, on your motivation. So that, to me, that's the struggle, to really find the right balance between, being a workaholic entrepreneur and a more stable one, and be careful with the fact that my digital nomad's life is bringing more challenges to really adjust to a new environment and be able to take care of myself properly.
Following up on that, I'm curious if you have any habits or routines, regular things that are in your calendar that you do no matter what, even if you don't feel like. What habits do you have to support yourself in that way that you just shared?
Yeah. Meditation is really important to me, especially when I'm tired, especially when I'm traveling. So, for example, when I take a plane, I would usually, depending on the length of the plane, but of the flight, but I would meditate a few times while I'm on the plane, because it helps actually with the jet lag. It helps with recovering better, with bringing your energy up. One other thing which is really important is to be able to speak to my friends. So I would really dedicate time to speak with my very close ones, whether it's my parents, my best friends, where we, again, discuss many things, where I can unload, I would say, because we're very transparent whenever we talk together. And I make room in my agenda, because if I don't put it in my agenda, it will never happen. I'm a very structured and organized person, so it has to be on my agenda.
I cannot agree with you more on that point. Actually, I tell people that all the time. Like if I don't put it in my calendar, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to get done. So I'm a big believer in that as well. I believe in meditation. I'm not the best person to go to for advice with that. And I'm curious, I have dug a little bit deeper in that subject. I'm curious, do you focus mainly on breathing meditation? Do you have guided meditations, podcasts or audio recordings that you use to guide you through? What sort of meditation do you find beneficial?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of guided meditation because it tends to make me be too much in my head. And for me, meditation allows me to, I've been very mental for the entire day, talking to people, thinking, reflecting, and so on. So meditation for me allows me to go back to my heart and my body and to find, and to my spirituality as well, and to find that balance between all my four bodies. I actually studied meditation in Vancouver, so I had a teacher guiding me, experimenting meditation with me. So we were meditating together, and then I was sharing my experience, and she was actually adjusting, and that's normal, you should do a bit more of this and so on. So she basically shared with me the meditation philosophy and gave me some kind of structure to really go deeper and do it on my own. But I tried lots of apps and many other things, and that never worked with me.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. It's a subject that I'm always very keen to learn more about, because I know it's a very personal thing for anyone to go through meditation, and I'm still trying new strategies and new meditations myself to see what resonates and is more helpful with me. And I can relate to the comments you made on being a workaholic as an entrepreneur. So for those career coaches or those entrepreneurs watching this right now, considering the nomadic lifestyle, I'm curious if you have anything that you outsource. You already mentioned that the calendar app that you use to help run your life, and I completely understand the value that brings to you. Is there anything that you would outsource to a freelancer or a VA, a virtual assistant?
I would outsource everything that I don't like doing. That's as simple as that. I think it's important. So that's the career coach talking. But I think it's so important to actually enjoy what you're doing, and more you enjoy and more satisfied you are and more performing you are. If you are in conflict with yourself, it's actually harder to started doing at the beginning, or let's say a year after I started my business, because when I started, I had no more money left because I invested everything in my studies, and the fact that I haven't worked for more than a year and a half to really settle in my new career. So at the beginning it was not possible, but once I started to make a bit of money, that was definitely the first thing that I did. So hiring a virtual assistant and hiring a bookkeeper / accountant. So I actually started working with a virtual assistant as soon as I could, because it was also difficult to handle everything, because when you are an entrepreneur, you are your profession plus an entrepreneur. So I'm a career coach plus an entrepreneur, and behind entrepreneur you also have many other hats. And what was great about working with that virtual assistant, and I would definitely recommend her to anyone, she was amazing. I'm not working with her anymore, but she really helped me to set up my business, everything, the processes, the documents, the social media, my website, everything. So now I don't need her as much as before, because everything is there, and I just need, from time to time to work around those things, but not like before, where I would have needed hours and hours to do that. And again,
and sorry, quick question: how did you hire her? Did you use Upwork, another service? Curious how you found her.
I found her on a Facebook group for digital nomads, because she's herself a digital nomad, and she's from Malaysia, but she posted something on the Chiang Mai digital nomads group, something like that. and we got in touch. And I'm a very intuitive person, and so I just said, let's start working together, and it was great. And we worked together for 2 years, and it was really, really great. And I'm very grateful because she really helped me.
That comes back to your networking tip that you shared with us not too long ago. And the reason why I had to ask you is because that is actually one of the pain points that people keep messaging me about constantly, as far as finding good quality people to work as a freelancer or a virtual assistant. Because I think a lot of people out there, unfortunately, have been burned in the past by people claiming to have all kinds of experience and knowledge when in fact they don't. And I think this is an area where various industries as a whole have to improve, because it is a little difficult currently how to prove someone's expertise. And through various technologies, I think they're going to improve on that. But I know it's a common problem for people knowing when to hire that first VA or that first part-time assistant or what have you. How, being a career coach, how would you advise someone on knowing when they've reached that point?
So from my own experience as a new entrepreneur at that time, as soon as possible, because it really makes a difference. So if you can afford it, do it. What I did at the beginning, for example, to build my website, my brand, I did a barter agreement with clients. So I was coaching them for free, and they were building my website. I was coaching them for free. They were designing my brand identity. So I just, I think it's the universe also who actually put those people on my path. But I really thought about what's important for me now. What's the minimum to have to start building my business, my structure, and that's what it was at that time. And it was my only way to do it, because, like I was saying earlier, when I did my career change, I didn't have much more money left. So it was important for me to be creative and to find different ways to make it happen, but maybe not with the most traditional way.
Fantastic. And what specific action steps would you tell someone to take first? There are currently a location today, right now, they're watching this, they're currently a location-based employee or entrepreneur or freelancer. And they want to make the shift to be location independent. What are those first couple steps that you would share that they should take a hard look at doing right away?
Mm-hmm. Research, read, find information. For me, knowledge is the basis of everything. So they need to have a clear understanding around what it really means and if it fits with them or not. The second thing is, so depending where you are in your life, whether you're ready to go full in, then go. If you're still hesitating, I would recommend you actually negotiate with your employer a 3 months, 6 months, 1 year break to just try it. Get a taste of it. See if you like it or not. And if you don't, you don't, and it's okay. And if you like it, then you'll know exactly what to do next, and you'll be sure about your decision when you'll tell your employer you don't want to do that anymore. I think right now, because of the COVID, it's even a better time to negotiate with your employer to work remotely. So why not? You don't need to be an entrepreneur to be a digital nomad. So it could be another option. And for the people who are ready to go, I would recommend they go to co-living, to co-working spaces. Again, I'm coming back to the community idea, but to me, that's really, really key.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's a popular subject right now, obviously, working remotely, working from home. And one of the things that I find myself coming back to quite often is, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, you may have wanted to work for this dream company that you've always wanted to work for, but they never hired remotely. Well, right now they are. Or if they're not hiring remotely, they're considering it for sure. If they want to stay around, if they want to stay in business, they certainly better be considering hiring remotely. So a few short months ago, you might not have been able to get that dream job. But today, you should really reach out to that brand, that company, that firm that you've always dreamed of working for, and you might be pleasantly surprised with what kind of reaction you're going to get, because now companies are looking at resiliency and sustainability a lot differently than they did a few short months ago. So it's an exciting time.
It is.
So this is a favorite question of mine that I love to ask. Right now, you can look out into the world. You can watch the news, and you can walk down any street, and you can find examples of heroes all around us. There are all kinds of first responders and nurses and doctors and cleaners that rightfully so are considered heroes because they're keeping us safe from germs and viruses and different elements. I would love to know what person, what individual you see yourself as a hero to. Who would you like to be a hero to? Because they're struggling, and you know that you have what it takes to bring them to that next precipice, that next level, for them to level up and improve their life in a measurable way. Who are you a hero to?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to be a hero to anyone. My ambition is to maybe inspire, or to, just because I said something, it created a reaction in someone, and that little thing will actually help them to look at things from a different perspective, or to take the first step towards what they really want for themselves. I'm a big, big believer in autonomy, responsibility, and independence. So I think I just don't want to take the responsibility of being a hero for someone else who can be the hero of themselves. And I think that's more important to me. But if I can in any way participate, in something, whatever it is, it's great. This morning I woke up, and the first message I saw on WhatsApp was the message of a friend that I helped, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and she needed help on her resume, and I just did it for free. Never met her, but it's a good friend of mine who asked me to actually share a few tips. And for me, it was just a gift this morning to say, I've applied for that company a few months ago. I was not called in for an interview. And because of all your great tips, I actually got 5 interviews and finally got a job with that company of my dreams. And the offer is amazing, and blah blah blah. And that's amazing, and I love that. That's very it brings me a lot of I feel privileged just because of that. And at the end of the day, it just took me 15 minutes of my time. But what I appreciate is that she actually asked for help, and she tried different means to go get to that company again, even though one day, the first time, she was her application was declined. So that's more what I want to create around me.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, because sometimes it's just the difference between asking for help versus getting frustrated and throwing your hands up and giving up. You might be one step away from success if you just ask for help, reach out to an expert, and get that little bit of guidance, because sometimes that's all that's really needed, right? Where do you see the life of a digital nomad being a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I know it's really hard to predict that, but let's talk about that and do some little dream building right now.
Yeah, I love that. Well, again, it's not for everyone. So what I wish is that the people who are meant to be nomads become nomads. I believe it's gonna become more and more common. I believe there are more and more people who are looking for true meaning in their life, and who don't want to live the life that their parents have lived, or not the same way. I think you were, talking about life experiences versus being more materialistic, and I think there are more and more people looking for experiences, looking for connection. It's weird because we are talking about digital nomads, and at the same time, it's amazing. It opens doors and opportunities, and at the same time, it's like taking us away from deeper and true connection with people. Or let's say in a different manner. So I believe there are people who need, that kind of connection, who need to find their tribe, their community. And I think being part of, that that trend could actually help those people fit that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for bringing it back to that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I actually find myself sharing quite often, more often than not lately, actually, that being a digital nomad is not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to swoop in and just make life perfect. You're essentially, when you choose this lifestyle, you're essentially trading in one set of challenges and obstacles and absorbing a completely different set. And it's this is why we're having a conversation like this one. We are to help mitigate some of those challenges and obstacles that are associated with a nomadic lifestyle, and why I was inspired to create Digital Nomad Journey, and why I'm sure you were inspired to create this incredible eventual co-living and co-working space with these wellness professionals associated with a nomadic lifestyle. So that's a very good point, and I agree with you. I think it is the future. I think more and more people will find that this way of life suits them a lot better than the traditional model, for lack of a better word, the traditional location-based model that the vast majority of us are living. But with advances in technology and more people getting access to the internet, it's just a natural progression that this is the eventual future. And for me to add just a little bit onto what you've already shared, and I think that's quite accurate, is I think we're moving towards a future of consultants. I think we already see examples of people outsourcing certain tasks and responsibilities, and because as a whole, the community is a lot more efficient when you focus on doing what you're good at, what your core competencies are, and outsourcing the things that you're not good at and that you don't enjoy doing. And I sort of envision, when I kind of think about the future, I sort of envision a world of consultants, and we're marching towards a future where we can engage and transfer value back and forth with one another internationally in a safe manner too, because it wasn't always the case, right? It wasn't that long ago when people didn't even feel safe buying something on the internet with their credit card number. And we've come a long way since those days. So I really cannot thank you enough, Bénédicte, for joining us today. You've shared a wealth of knowledge with all of us, and I really appreciate you and your time. Where can people reach you and find you to get more information about you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed our conversation. It's always interesting to reflect back and remember, the beginning of the journey. So it's great. Thank you. Well, they can find me typically on Facebook, Instagram, as Bene, the Nomad Coach. Then there is my website, benedictecoaching.com. And I'm always happy, to get to talk to people. So if any one of those people watching us right now want to reach out and have, any question, I'll be more than pleased to respond back.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Bene, the Nomad Coach, I really appreciate having you here with us today. It was very insightful, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So if you enjoyed this conversation and you made it all the way to the end of this interview, I congratulate you. I appreciate you, because you're trying to learn a new skill perhaps, and maybe you're not watching cat videos. And not that there's anything wrong with watching cat videos and dog videos and all the stuff that entertain us. But I appreciate you for being here all the way at the very end. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And if you are still here watching, then you might want to check out these YouTube videos, since the YouTube algorithm seems to think you will enjoy them as well. Own the day and make it yours. Take care.